Hi, I'm Crystal.
And I'm Karin, and you're listening to the Rom-Com Detectives.
Welcome to Rom-Com Detectives, episode 12, Razzmatazz, the next episode in our Mentalist unit. Today, Karin and I will be talking about the 7th episode of the first season called Seeing Red, which is kind of what I was doing while watching this episode again. Oh boy.
This episode originally aired on November 18th, 2008.
Okay, let's get to the case briefing. This one, Karin actually, I don't think I knew this. I just assumed it was in Sacramento. But then actually it makes sense that when you say this. She says that it took place in a place called Santa Rosa. And where did you find that out?
It was in the script.
In the script, okay. And yeah, actually that makes sense because Rigsby mentions that they take a chopper. So
Yeah.
and where is that?
According to the maps, it is north of San Francisco. It's about an hour and 45 minutes west of Sacramento.
Okay. So it's a real place.
In theory.
I mean, yeah, it might be like a made up Santa Rosa and it just so happens to be a
Yeah.
real place too, right?
Yeah, the lake they mention, or the reservoir, I should say. Google is like, I think you made a mistake. This doesn't exist.
Yeah, so the title relevance, the phrase seeing red means a sudden intense anger.
The victim was Rosemary Tennant, a rich widow. She was run down and hit by a car, and the CBI got involved because the victim's late husband was a close friend of the lieutenant governor.
The motive was anger, and there were quite a lot of guest stars in this one. People probably recognize the guy who played Jeremy Hale. His name is J.R. Bourne. He's been on Revenge and Teen Wolf and The 100. For me, the one that I recognized the most was Noel Fisher. He was the brother, Travis. He was the guy, the crime scene tech guy, Stucky from Law and Order
Oh.
SVU. Can't stand him. So I really as soon as I saw him in this episode, the first time I watched it, every time I watched it, so I'm like, ew, it's Stucky. Because, yeah, he's not a very likable character on SVU. He's very annoying. But he was also on Shameless. And then there's Ashley Johnson. She's a prolific voice actor, and she actually voices Ellie from the game The Last of Us. So I think a lot of people are familiar with her voice. Maybe they don't know her by name, but yeah, she's Ellie. And Last of Us is actually airing right now on Max for season 2. And she was also in The Killing, a show I really like. Highly recommend that one. There was Brad Rowe, who's from Perception and General Hospital. And then, of course, there's Leslie Hope. She's Kristina Frye.
Woo.
When I first saw the show, I saw her and I was like, I know this woman from something.
Yep.
I couldn't get it though. I had to Google it and I was like, oh, that's right. She was Jack Bauer's wife on 24. Oh my
Oh.
God.
Oh, it's been years since I watched that.
Yeah. And she looked really different because she had like a really short hair. So I don't know. Is that a bob cut? I don't know. It was pretty short. So she looked very different. But there's actually one point in this episode where she's got her hair tied back really tight. I was like, oh, now she looks like her.
Nice.
But yeah, she was also in Suits, and she's actually a director. She directed quite a few episodes of Snowpiercer, the TV show on TNT, which I actually really like, and then a couple of episodes in Murder in a Small Town, which was a recent show that aired, I think, late last year. And she's also directed episodes of Law and Order. So when she's not irritating Mentalist fans, she's out there directing. So yeah, this is the first episode with Kristina Frye. It's I'm gonna have some things to say. Hopefully, I'll be able to keep it non-explicit. All right, let's. Karin, why don't you go over Jane's Actually, there's not too many of Jane's
Yeah.
skills in this episode.
Yeah, I only noted one. He does some hypnotic suggestion over the phone.
Yeah. He sounds his voice is very smooth. You can it has a certain tone, yeah, to it
Yeah.
when he
Yeah.
starts talking to people in that way, trying to hypnotize them. It's a nice little detail from Simon Baker. What do you think it is? It's just he starts it's not that he's talking faster, but it's almost like he's blending his words a little smoother together.
Yeah.
Some
Let's see if I can find this quick.
I think he talks faster for one.
Yeah, they describe how he talks in the script. I just wanted to where was that? Oh, here. He
It's
speaks
right before they find Travis, yeah.
Yep, I find it. They say Jane speaks in a swift, hypnotic cadence.
Okay, so yeah, he does talk faster then.
And they bolded in the script the words that the horses. They
Uh,
bolded that like so he emphasizes it.
when I was taking notes, I was like, I wrote down, "Does Jane actually like horses?" Then I was like, wait, never mind. This is totally irrelevant. It's just part of his hypnotism.
He got you.
Yeah, he got me. All right, let's get to the episode breakdown. So the episode begins at this it like takes us to like this peaceful looking fountain, and it goes to this nice house, and a woman comes rushing out, and we see this woman chasing after her, and she's saying, "You're in serious danger." And the lady ignores her, and she starts walking home through town, and then oh my god, a car comes out of nowhere and runs her down and
Yay!
kills her and then flees. Yeah, so it's a very violent hit and run.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And I do want to say that I know it's TV, but like the person who was driving the car looked like a man. It turns out not to be a man, so so rewatching it, like I was like, they should have, I don't know, made it a little more ambiguous. It just kind of looked like a
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, the stunt driver.
Yeah. So the team arrives in a cop car, but they don't have Van Pelt with them. And I think it's because like we mentioned, Rigsby says that they got to use the chopper. He's looks really excited about this.
Yeah.
But I guess the local cops must have picked them up, and that's why they arrived in the cop car. But Lisbon explains to the viewers that they're on the case because the victim was a close friend, the wife of a close friend of the lieutenant governor. And then she does her territorial thing where the cops like, oh, it'll be nice to have your backup. She's like, we're not backup, we're lead. And I don't know, like watching this back, I found this actually a little irritating. It was kind of grating on me, just the way that she's very, I don't know, what's the word?
Your Lisbon graded on you?
Yeah, just the way that she's just very smug and no, we're taking
Oh,
over the
yeah.
case because
Yeah, I could see that a little bit.
yeah.
It's interesting to me though, in the script, it, says that the cop is flirting with her when he
Uh,
says that. When he says, "We'd like your backup," but it notes that Jane is particularly noting that he's flirting with her.
ah. I don't think that really made it in. I didn't get that
I don't
impression
think
from the
so either.
scene. Yeah.
Uh-uh.
So they mentioned, or he meant the cop mentions that Rosemary had just filed a missing persons report on her son Travis, who's been missing for a week, and that's when Kristina walks up and she says that Rosemary was with her, and then Jane asks, she mentions that she's her spiritual advisor, and this makes Jane's ears perk up. He's like, "Well,
Mhm.
what was that?" He's like being all like snarky about it.
Yeah, he is.
So he's like up in arms from the very start as soon as he hears what she does, right? And then she starts spewing out her spiel. She's just like, "Oh, I just contacted her dead husband." Oh, you just know at this point that he's just gonna be all up in arms, and he like definitely delivers on this front in this episode.
Oh, yes.
He's pretty harsh on her. And even from this scene, right, he like states right there that she's either psychic or she's involved with the murder. And I mean, you gotta admit from like the practical standpoint, like Lisbon's standpoint, it does look kind of bad because I mean, you'd have to believe in psychics to
Mhm.
like excuse what she's saying, right? So
Yeah, it's sounds pretty fantastical.
and I suspect that's why Van Pelt wasn't here for this part because she does so much of the defending of Christina. I feel like if she was here too, that would have been. But yeah, so he laughs at her and she tells him that he's completely misreading the situation. At this point, he seems like he's feels like he's going to enjoy what's the investigation because she's clearly someone that he's going to get to banter with or make fun
Yep,
of.
yep.
He makes what would you how would you describe his like it's like a snarky kind of little boy, right? Kind of
Yeah, yeah.
I like when he makes that noise. So Lisbon had asked Christina if they could talk to her at CBI. So this is going to be one of those other transportation things because I don't feel like they're going to be trucking Christina back and forth in their chopper.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of people come to them in this one. They spend a lot of
Yeah.
time at the CBI.
Yeah. So, oh boy. A lot of gas mileage reimbursements in this one. So they speak with Christina in the bullpen at their conference table, and Jane asks how much she charges, and she says it's $500 per hour. Wow.
Right?
And she was charging Rosemary 5 to 6 hours per week. So like 2,500 to $3,000 a week. Like, geez, I wish I
Yeah.
had that much money to burn on a fake ticket.
Yeah. She does say that she adjusts her rate depending on
How
her
rich they
clients.
are.
Right, which is an I don't know, that's another level
Oh
to
yeah, she says
unpack.
there's something about how she doesn't discriminate or she doesn't turn anyone away or something, right?
Right, right.
So I guess if you've got loose change in your pocket, she'll gladly take that.
But she does a reading on Jane for free here.
Yeah. But so she's kind of cagey about certain things. And this part really irritated me because Grace asks her how the relationship with her children was suffering because of the way that people were preying on her after her husband's death. And she doesn't want to talk about it. She says that she adheres to the same confidentiality code that all doctors abide by. And oh God, this got me so irritated. And I think even Lisbon
Mhm.
picked up on this because she's like, "Oh, do you have a license? Are you a licensed therapist?" And she actually says, "Yes, she is."
Yep, she has her bases covered.
Ugh. But yeah, so like you said, she does a reading on Jane for free, and she like talks about how he behaves as an act, but he's
Mhm.
troubled with deep guilt and self-loathing from a recent trauma and is more than a little unstable. And she turns to Lisbon and says, "You have your work cut out for you." It's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I want to punch her. I would like to punch her, but we'll count how many times I feel like punching her during this episode. And it's even more irritating because when she says this, Lisbon looks impressed. And Van Pelt's just like, "Ooh, you are good." Like she's so complimentary. It's like, and like Jane is scoffing, and I'm just like, "Yeah, scoff, a scoff for all of us." uh, I guess it just irritates me that Lisbon and Van Pelt are just like they seem to be buying it right at this point.
Well, Van Pelt for sure, but I think and I couldn't say with certainty, but I think that Lisbon is kinda just having a front row seat to the drama
Yeah, actually,
here,
yeah, you're
that
right.
she's
Yeah,
kind of
given the conversation
enjoying.
later.
Yeah, yep.
Oh, but the little exchange between them when Jane's like, "You're good," and she's like, "I like to think so," and oh my god, the two of them are nicely evenly matched, I have to
Yes.
say, in like
Yeah.
confidence and bravado.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, this lady has some balls on her, I swear. Just the way that how like she was telling them about how after her husband died that people were preying on her, and it's like, "Oh yeah, you too."
Yep, you're one of them.
And then later she's like, "Oh, yeah, self-awareness is so important." Oh, oh, this woman.
Yes, I do like it here where Jane says that, he could be easily researched on the internet,
Yeah, yeah.
and Christina's like, "Why would I want to research you on the internet? Who do you think you are, dude?"
But at the same time, I feel like she must have because, I mean
Sh She definitely did later, but it's hard to know for sure if she knew had any idea who Jane was at this
Yeah,
point.
actually, you could argue that she wouldn't have to research him, that she might have already heard of him because she's a psychic, so she must
Right,
like she must run in psychic
right.
circles. So, I mean, obviously, you talk about people in your own profession, so she probably heard
There's a
about
chance.
him, yeah,
Yeah, for sure there's a
and like what
chance.
happened to him and things like that. So, it could be all an act. That's the big question about this episode, which is actually something I like, that it's pretty ambiguous and you can go back and forth and you can make a strong
Mhm.
argument either way. So I like that about this episode. I liked the part where he says, not to boast, but I am quite a well known horrible tragedy. Just the way that he delivers that, I liked how
Mhm.
he did that. Yeah. But then Christina asks if she can go. And actually, this supports what you said because Lisbon is smirking at Jane. I think yeah, she's just enjoying that Christina's throwing him off.
Uh-huh.
She's like his competition at this point, right?
He's like, "See what I have to deal with here?"
Exactly. Next, Rigsby, Jane, and Lisbon go to Rosemary's house, and Rigsby explains that she has a semi permanent house guest. I would like to never have a semi permanent house guest.
No, thank you.
He's a photographer named Jeremy Hale, and he's Rosemary's boyfriend. So, do they ever mention at any point how long ago her husband died? It must have
I
been.
don't think so.
I think they mentioned that Jeremy moved in 6 months ago, so it must have
Right.
been under a year or so. But
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, it seems recent, but she's been seeing this guy at least 6 months, so
yeah. But yeah, so he shows them in. He's apologizing for the mess because there are beer bottles everywhere. I guess he had a party last night while she was getting run over.
oh, no.
Ah, he's kind of skeevy, right? He's
Yes. Yeah, he's definitely doesn't seem to be grieving at all, and he's got his stuff all over this house.
Yeah. So Jane asks if they're lovers, and he doesn't actually say that they were.
No.
He talks around and he says that he loved her, and that yeah, it doesn't sound like they're sleeping together. So he managed to con his way in without
Eh,
getting into her bed.
it's yeah, it's a strange moment.
Because yeah, they call him her boyfriend. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So Lisbon asks if he got close to the kids, and he tells them that the daughter's grown up and she doesn't come around much. But he has a lot to say about Travis. He says that he was stealing, he was doing drugs, and the death of his dad like really affected him. And meanwhile, Jane is looking around at all the family photos, and none of them include Jeremy,
Nope.
because they're all like with the dad. He mentions that they had a big fight, and that's when Travis left. So at this point, Jane asks if he can go peep around in the house, and he goes upstairs. And that's when Lisbon mentions that Rosemary had put Jeremy in her will a few months ago. And Rigsby says that she had an appointment with her lawyer to make more adjustments to her will. And they ask
Mhm.
him what that might have been. And he speculates that it was to cut Travis out of her will. It actually turns out that that's what she was going to do. So he was right there. But they get interrupted because Jane yells for Lisbon. And have we talked about this? Is this the first time he does his Lisbon?
I don't think so. I think that happened, earlier.
Yeah. I can't remember which one it was, so we have to keep track of that. I
We should.
I put it down on our rewatch list checklist though. But yeah, so they go upstairs, and upstairs Jane has found a studio, and like it's full of photos of Rosemary. And Lisbon makes like a snide remark. It must be nice to have a benefactor, because yeah, I guess he's got like a dark room and everything. Although I didn't see anything like that in there.
No.
But Jane reads the room, and he guesses that that used to be Travis's room, and he asks him if Travis left because he took his room, and then he guesses that he had to move upstairs to it looked like the attic, right?
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
Jeremy's like, "Oh, he was happier in a smaller room."
Oh,
Ugh.
yuck.
I felt really bad for Travis here because can you
Yeah.
imagine your dad dies, some dude moves in, he's like some high like snooty photographer, and he starts having beer parties at his mom's house and steals his
Yeah.
room and
Yeah, it sounds pretty miserable.
this episode is full of full of icky people. So back at the office, the team discusses suspects. Apparently their prime suspect is Travis. And I wasn't really sure why, because I thought Travis is supposed to be young. Like he was still young enough to be living with them.
He's
Right? So he would
yeah,
be a
still living
minor,
at home.
right?
Yeah.
Or what do you think he was a minor or No, like he was old eno still old e like an adult, but still living with the mom kinda thing, or
I was I guess I was thinking maybe late high school. Maybe
Oh, okay.
old enough to drive because
Yeah,
he
yeah, yeah.
would borrow her car.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so maybe he was technically an adult, but still living at home. But Rigsby's looking at a list of people who are leeching off of Rosemary, and oh my god, it was so long. I felt so bad for this woman. But at the same time, oh my god, I was just like, "Lady, you're so gullible." And it must be nice to have that much money to just throw away on
Oh, goodness.
willy-nilly on whoever you want.
Yeah, and they don't talk about her running low on funds at any point. Like, she was
Yeah,
able to she could afford to sustain it.
yeah. But so this is when the daughter Clara comes in to talk to them, and she asks if they found her brother yet, but no, he's still missing. And she this is an important part. She mentioned
Mhm.
she's like crying about like how her mother died and saying, "I can't believe like for her to die in the gutter like that." And when I first saw the episode, I picked up on that too. I was like, "Oh, you knew your mom died in the gutter even though you just came in and heard about it? Like who told you that?" So I kind of suspected her from the beginning.
Oh, I see.
But yeah, so Clara talks about how her mother has always been preyed upon by people. I guess even when she was in college, her brother called her and said that her mom was making a bunch of bad investments. And but Jane seems very interested in her. He touches her hand soothingly, and did you notice that Lisbon looks very interested in this? That he's touching her hand.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's like looking down at their hands and looking at him. I don't know. To me, it looked like she was just like, why is he so interested in her?
Yeah. That's a little out of character for Jane, yeah.
Clara tells them that Jeremy is scary and dangerous, that he wants what he wants, and he has a very bad temper. And that's very different from how he was behaving around them. He kind of tried to give off this chill vibe. Like you said, he
Mhm.
didn't seem very affected by Rosemary's death, except to be like, oh, yeah, I loved her and she had an essence, and I couldn't turn down her generous will. It's like, dude, okay, that's so nice of you. So Jane gets an idea. He asks Clara to plug Travis's phone number into his phone, which I thought was weird. I guess he must have just wanted her to play a part because they must have had Travis's phone number.
Yeah, I don't know. It does make it easier for him.
Yeah. But then he gets up and he leaves a voicemail, and this is the hypnotism thing. He talks about how he likes horses, and he tells him to think about a moment of peace and going round and round in his mind and then go to that place that makes him happy. And Rigsby is was sitting right there while he did that, and I guess so he asked, "What was that about?" Jane asked, I liked how they transitioned this scene. Jane asked him,
Yeah.
"Quick, what's the first thing you think about?" And he snaps his fingers, and it goes straight to the merry-go-round. I like that cut. That
Yeah.
was really nice.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's very, snazzy for Jeez. It's the Razzmatazz.
There you go.
But yeah, so they're at the merry-go-round, and it's not clear to me how they knew that there was a merry-go-round because
Or this particular merry-go-round, how yes,
especially
I
because
wondered
it's
that
2
too.
hours away, right?
I yes, I wondered that. Yeah, if they're calling from the CBI and then they have to quick drive a couple
Like,
hours
did
to
Jane
find
spend some time
uh,
driving around? "Oh, look, there's a merry-go-round, I'll use that later." That part doesn't really
you
add
never
up.
know with Jane.
But yeah, so they go through the merry-go-round and like they're looking around for Travis, and Cho and Rigsby have a kind of amusing conversation here, and Cho
Mhm.
drops one of his these details about himself that's kind of strange, but Rigsby's telling Cho that he can't say he doesn't believe in psychics because he's never seen one.
Yep.
And Cho says, "Oh yeah, you're right. I've never seen a zebra, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist." And then Cho says, I don't get zoos. You pay money and you get to look at animals." I just wanted to note that Rigsby is eating cotton candy while they're staking out this merry-go-round, which was very on brand for him.
Always eating.
I actually thought that he was going to be eating it and then they were going to have to go run and chase somebody. Travis shows up and they get on the merry-go-round and the ride starts. And they're like being really obvious that they're
They're
there for him.
like creepy
Yeah,
obvious.
kind of creepy, right? Like if I was Travis, I would have been like, "Who the hell are these three people?"
Yes,
I
it
would have
was
been
very,
scared.
very ominous. Interesting though that Travis picked a bench and not a horse. Who does
Yeah.
that on a merry-go-round? Who does that?
By yourself too, right?
Right,
Usually you sit in that one with like a parent or if you're like with your boyfriend or girlfriend, right?
right.
That's like
Yeah.
the love seat. He's about to run, but Jane tells him to wait. I guess he wants to finish riding the merry-go-round.
I guess so.
But also, it's not safe to just jump off. So you can't
Yeah.
really jump off the merry-go-round with a suspect. So might as well enjoy it. So good point.
But I wonder at this point because Travis does wait. So is it Jane's voice? Does he recognize the voice from the voicemail, or is this
uh
part of his suggestion? Because Jane tells him to go to the merry-go-round and call him.
oh, he does.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I do find it weird that they had this whole setup to look for Travis, but they think he might be the killer. Like, what about these children on the merry-go-round?
Right. Yeah, let's take him somewhere with a lot of people
A lot
and
of young
corner him
people.
and see what happens.
Oh, yeah, that's not very responsible. But yeah, so when they do find him, though, Jane goes, "Jane, I'll never doubt you again." And so, do you think we're gonna have to keep track of that? Because Cho seems
I
to be a
was
man of
wondering
his
that too.
word.
Yeah,
We're gonna have to see if Cho ever doubts him again, or if he just this is the point where he just goes along with whatever.
right. And Jane says, "You ever doubted me?"
They take him back to the CBI, which if the merry-go-round was in Santa Rosa, they're gonna have to take him hour 45 minutes away. Maybe they had the chopper here, right? For
Yeah.
they got to ride the chopper again. Let's just go with that.
Okay.
we although we to note we never wait, we do see the chopper once. Yeah.
But not in this episode though, do
No,
we?
no, no, no.
No.
But we see it later in Code Red. So Lisbon starts off very gentle with Travis, asking why he didn't call anyone for help when Jeremy moved in. And I don't know. I can understand why he wouldn't because in that situation, I mean, it seems it must have felt kind of hopeless for him. And who is he going to call? I mean, other than his sister, and his sister is off having her own life, kind of thing.
Yep.
But Clara and Jane watch from the other side of the glass, and Travis gets really upset when they start laying it on him that they think that he's a suspect, that they think that he killed his mother, and he starts crying. And I don't know, it felt believable to me, and it seems like
Yeah.
Jane believes him too. So because he lets Clara go into the room, and he's specifically watching him though. So I think at this point he suspects her already.
Yeah. I think so too. Because why else would Clara be allowed to watch this
Yeah,
interview? It seems kind of strange that she's in the interrogation room at this point. But it feels like Jane is watching her reaction
her. Yeah,
to the interview.
yeah. And she does seem kind of calm because you would think that if your brother is in there being grilled as a suspect in the death of your in the murder of your mother, you'd be like, "No, no, we're gonna go talk to a lawyer. You can't talk to him anymore." You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
It just seems like
Mhm.
she wouldn't have allowed that conversation to happen. So I think that probably makes Jane suspect her too because she knows that it's not him. So she probably thinks
Right.
they're not gonna get him because he didn't do it, right? So
Yeah. Yep.
Lisbon reveals that Rosemary was going to give Jeremy millions. So, geez, these people are like sickeningly rich,
Yes.
but that's his motive. Rigsby says that someone else was added to the will and that it was, and Jane guesses that he's like lying on his couch at this point. He
Yep.
sits up very suddenly. He's like, let me guess, Christina.
Yep.
And it was Christina. And this is where Van Pelt starts to irritate me because she's like, maybe Christina just has a rare and important gift. Oh god. I mean, I know that sounds like I'm mocking Grace, but it's just oh my god, I'm so irritated with Christina. That's where all my animosity comes from. It's all coming from Christina, not actually Van Pelt. I just because she has
Oh,
roped Grace in. I feel like
oh yeah. Van Pelt
hook,
lays it
line, and
on
sinker.
very thick, very thick.
Yeah. But Jane pushes back, and he's
Oh, and it's so good.
yeah, he's like, "How come no one ever has the ability to guess horse race results?" And he says that believing in psychics is like believing in the Easter Bunny.
And this is when Rigsby says, "Who says the Easter Bunny isn't real?" I feel like he's I feel like he's just defending Grace. I think he's
Yeah,
just trying
yeah.
to get on her good side or stay on her good side.
And then, uncanny bit of timing, Christina calls. She calls Van Pelt, and
She
oh my
calls
god,
Van Pelt.
and Van Pelt is so happy to hear from her.
It's like she's got a call from a close friend. She's like, "Oh, hi. Good to hear from
Yeah,
you."
yeah, very irritating. She's got her good. But yeah, so she says Christina's had a vision. She's picking up on something. And so she's gonna go talk to her. And Lisbon tells Van Pelt she has to take Jane. She does not want to take Jane.
Nope.
And like so Lisbon says that she wants him to go because if Christina's conning them, they need to know. So she wants Jane to go and read Christina
Mhm.
specifically. And
Yep.
then here Van Pelt defends her again and says she's not. She's so confident in Christina. Ugh. I haven't sworn yet.
Good job.
At Christina's, she tells him through like a voice box, like
Yeah.
kind of like is that what they're called? I don't know what they're called.
Like a intercom
Yeah,
speak.
yeah. She tells him
Yeah.
to wait, and she's got this dopey picture of herself at the front on display. This is again with the thing of people with pictures of themselves.
But th this but this is relevant because,
Yeah,
Jeremy took the picture.
yeah, yeah. So I actually didn't look. Was his name on it? Because Jane
I
notices, right?
he probably if it's not the name, he would recognize the style maybe.
Mm, mm.
Because yeah, they don't draw attention to it at this point,
Yeah, and
but
they don't mention how he figures that out or anything, but it
mm-mm.
could be it could even be the frame too, so
Yep.
because Jeremy had, like, a bunch of framed pictures of his work in that studio, so I like Jane's joke. Did he say, "I smell dead people?" Or
Yeah,
I s
I smell dead people. Yeah.
I guess because she had incense burning or something, right? For the younger people, I felt like that was a Sixth Sense kinda reference. Did you
Yeah.
think that?
Yeah, I
When
think
did that
so.
movie come out? It came out in the '90s, right?
Oh goodness, probably early 2000s, I'd say.
Yeah, so I think it was still, like, a pretty relevant, like, cultural reference back then.
1999. Came out in
Yeah,
'99.
okay. Although in that one, it was I see dead people, so
Yeah.
but I this part was amusing because they're looking around and Jane sees a mirror and he tells Van Pelt, "You see that? That's a one-way glass. She's probably looking at us on the other side." But he goes on the other side of the wall and there's nothing there.
Nothing. He's, like, knocking on the wall.
Yeah, yeah, and I think this is, like they put this in to, like, kinda build up to the next scene because Jane is, like, kinda thrown off here, right? This is, like, kinda the first time that we see that Jane is kinda stumbling in a way, you
Yeah.
know? He's got someone who's competition for him and who seems to be just as good as what he was, so
Yep.
I liked I like anytime he insults Christina. Where he's like, "You talk a high class game, but your temple looks like a discount souvenir store in Shangri-La." And to be
Yeah,
fair, it did kinda look
it did.
like when you walk into, like, a crystal store or something like that, right? Like,
Yep.
some kind
And
of holistic healing kind of shop or something like that.
there's, like, price tags on everything.
Yeah. There is a cost to spiritual healing. It's probably very high too. Rocks from her garden, probably like 50 to
There you go.
$100.
"These rocks have been blessed by my fountain."
Christina fires back and points out that her setup is like the shiny suits that he used to wear. And so he picks up that now she's looked him up and she
Yep.
says, "Yeah, she did. Red John murdered your family." And she says, "I'm very sorry for your loss." But she's not sorry. I insist that she's not sorry. She's a viper out for blood.
But but if she doesn't pretend to be sorry, then she can't be his he won't be her client.
That's my summation of my thoughts on Kristina is, ugh. But Jane jokes that it was the suits that they were chafing horrible, but then he gets really serious and he says, "Don't try to cold read me." And she claims that she doesn't know how.
Yeah, right.
BS. It's clearly BS. But Van Pelt looks really awkward here.
Yes.
He's like, "Can we talk about the case?"
Yes. Well, Christina's ready to just get up and leave because
Yeah, yeah.
Jane's being so mean.
So
Uh,
rude.
and Van Pelt's like, no, wait, I'm the agent here. Let's talk about actual case things now."
Yeah, because Jane had asked her if she had contacted Rosemary, and she said no, and he joked that the celestial bus is running late. Ah. But so Christina reveals that she had a vision about the car that killed Rosemary, and that she saw tires underwater and water rushing into the windows and concrete or something like that. And Van Pelt
Mhm.
suggests, oh, maybe it's Founder's Lake, which is on the edge of town. And I have to wonder how, how Van Pelt knew the name of this
Right.
place if it's 2 hours away.
Right.
We'll just say that Van Pelt was studying maps as part of her duties as a supporting team member. Jane is looking very interestingly at Christina, though. He just looks very, I know your game kind of thing.
Mhm.
And he looks kind of amused.
Mhm. Well, because it's the whole thing where, like, Christina suggests water and Van Pelt fills in a plausible place,
Yeah, yeah.
and then Christina's like, "Yep, that." And it's that
Yeah.
whole,
Because
I'll
that's something that Jane does, right? He leads
yeah,
people so that
yep,
they feel like they came up with the answer, but actually they were just leading them to it.
uh-huh,
Okay, so this actually covers it's not really spoilery, but I mean, we do see Christina again later in a later
mhm.
episode. She comes back and her home is very different. So do you think that Jane's criticism of her temple or whatever causes her to make changes in her aesthetic or her outlook?
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. Cause yeah, this is like a I don't quite remember what she changes it to, but this house looks just kinda like a cozy bungalow well, not a bungalow, they call it a gingerbread cookie cutter house or something.
Oh,
I don't know.
yeah. Because like she does say her home. Like in the beginning, they asked, "Oh, where were
Yeah, that's
you?"
where
She
she
says, "My
lives.
home." Yeah, so her like office or whatever is actually where she lives too.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So maybe she just got enough money in the will
yeah, yeah.
to upgrade,
Eh.
or maybe she wanted to relocate to another town. I don't know if they
Yeah.
specify where she is later.
So next we go to the reservoir and they pull a car out of the water, and Cho says that the car was registered to Rosemary. And Lisbon puts Van Pelt on finding digital evidence. I guess she wants like street cam footage and things like that. The local cop comes back and he's like, "Should we arrest Travis?" And there's like a little sparring going on between him and Lisbon, right?
Yep.
He's like, 90% of the time I just go with my gut.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Like, "Oh,
Lisbon's
yeah,
like, "Well, what about the other
another
10%?"
10%."
Yeah, she says that everything is still circumstantial. And I mean, it's true. They don't really have like actual evidence.
Mm-mm.
Jane approaches her and says, if anyone should be arrested, it's Christina because she knew where to find the car and that Rosemary was in danger. But Lisbon is onto him. She insists that Christina just did accurate deducing. She made an educated guess and she's very confident on the outside. And so she says that this is just what Jane does. And I think she's like, she's calling him out basically. She's
Mhm.
not saying it, but I think she's saying, like, well, she came up with this. Why didn't you come up with this? Because she kind of, the way that she says things, right? She's like, where else are you gonna dump a car around here? So it's kind of like a hint, hint. You should have come up with this since the two of you are do the same thing. You're my consultant, so consult.
Yeah, like, calling him out he's definitely distracted by
Yeah,
Christina.
yeah. But because he admits that, yes, she's good, but he still insists
Oh,
that
yeah.
she's not better than him. So his pride is coming out here.
Oh, yeah. It is interesting, though, that he does be like, "Yeah, okay, you're right. Maybe she is just good at this."
But not better than me.
Right.
And he tells her it's the good ones that are most dangerous. Except not him, is the
Right?
implication. But oh my god, Hera Van Pelt butts in and she's gotta defend
Yes.
Kristina again, and she
Yep.
says, "Maybe she's just in touch with something beyond your understanding." And then Cho brings evidence that they found in the trunk. I guess it was the
Yep.
only thing they found in the trunk, and, I mean, that makes sense because, there was water in the
I
car and
they
everything, so I would
they
think it would have
open the
washed it all
door,
out.
and all this water comes rushing out. It's like, "What if there was evidence in there? You're not
Yeah,
straining
yeah,
anything."
yeah. But I guess she says high grade coated nylon, and I guess it was a glove.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, because I looked at the bag, I was like, "What the heck is that?" It's just this white there it was 2 white things, and, Lisbon says, "Just like at a photo lab." So that ties them back to Jeremy, so they go back to the tenant house, and Clara tells him that she exchanged words with Jeremy and threw him out, and that now some of her mom's jewelry is missing. Cho tells them that the person who took the car that killed Rosemary had the key. So
Mhm.
they still
So
suspect Travis because I think who had told him that Jeremy drives that car? I think Cho knew that right at the scene, but I don't know how he knew that.
they
Maybe
kn they
they
knew
had talked to people?
it was registered to Rosemary, so they knew that the people who would for sure have access to it would be Travis and Jeremy.
Yeah. So Lisbon reveals that Travis's alibi wasn't very good because he had said he was at a party with friends, but they said that there
Yep.
were too many people, they couldn't verify that he was there. Clara says it's clearly Jeremy because he left. And I think this later on we're going to talk about this, but I think this is the point where Jane mentions that she's trying to blame it on Jeremy. So this is where he figures it out.
Yep.
Actually though, Jane wasn't here. He was upstairs, right? Or was he here?
Yeah, he was upstairs at the po no, wait.
Uh
Oh, I
I
think I
think he was
remember
upstairs.
or he slipped
Or
away.
maybe he was coming down and he heard her because and then he, like, called Lisbon upstairs, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Jane calls Lisbon back upstairs to the studio, and, like, Lisbon is telling Risby to put on an APB on Jeremy because, like, they said he's fled somewhere, and Jane doesn't think that he's, like, flown away, he thinks he's not far.
Mhm.
Again, he points out one of the photos that's stacked up in the room and points out that there's a hole in one and I guess some dirt. So he thinks that Rosemary saw the picture of this girl and that she like tore her. She like kicked it or something and tore her heel through it.
Mhm.
So they take the photo downstairs and they ask the kids, "Oh, who this is?" And Travis identifies her as the daughter of one of Rosemary's bridge partners. So that and they know her name, so that's how they find out where she is. They go to her
Yep.
place, her house, and that's where they find Jeremy with a can of whipped cream. I don't know what they're
In his
doing with it.
underwear.
But the girl, Connie, is wearing one of the missing jewelry items,
Yep,
so
real smooth.
Oh, and then when they question him later, they're like, "Take him all the way back to the CBI."
Yes, they do.
But they question him, and he says that Travis drove the car, and they mention the gloves that they found, and he says it could have been left there to frame him, I think. And then Lisbon lays out pictures of all these other women that he's done the same thing to, and so
Yeah,
yeah, icky.
yeah. But he does point out they are all still alive.
Yeah, and that they're all on good terms with him. Like
Yeah,
he invites them to
yeah,
call them, right?
yeah.
Ugh, gross.
Ugh.
I worry about this kind of person with, like, my own mother. I
Yeah,
just wanna say.
yeah. He gets around too because I believe they talked about New York and Chicago.
Yeah.
Like he was looking for them. He didn't want them talking to each other.
Yeah, yeah. So they lay out that, this is where they reveal that the portrait in Christina's house was taken by Jeremy. And so, like I said, this
Yeah.
must have been a detail that Jane provided. I don't know if they, like, cut that out or whatever. But they posed the idea that Jeremy and Kristina were conning Rosemary together. And at that point, that's when he lawyers up.
Yep.
So it goes back out to the bullpen. And oh my God, I saw CBI Ron.
I saw him
I
too.
He's on the phone. He sits next to Rigsby. But Rigsby has a list of 5 people who, over the last 10 years, had named Kristina in their wills, and they had gifted her anywhere from $10,000 to $200,000. Oh, Van Pelt defends her again.
Getting money isn't a crime.
Ugh. She says it doesn't prove anything about Kristina. So they go back and they talk to Kristina about Jeremy, and she says, this was interesting because he pretended not to know her, but she
Yep.
says that they had sex on occasion.
Yep.
So they
Couple
know each
times.
other. And then at this point, I feel like she threw this in to distract Jane because of what she's had to admit, because it's clear that they suspect her at this point, and I think she picks up on that because she's smart. She would know that they're what the dots they're connecting are. But he asked her again if she's contacted Rosemary. She says yes, she has talked to her, and that she's
Yeah.
quite taken with Jane for some,
Yeah.
which
How
was
would
weird, right?
really weird. And why didn't she, like, volunteer the information that, "Oh, by the way, I talked to Rosemary."
Yeah, like
Why did she
why didn't she
wait?
call her buddy Van Pelt and tell
Right?
her?
"Oh, hey, come on over. I talked to Rosemary."
Yeah, so yeah, it felt like she made this crap up on the spot just to like kind of divert them.
Yeah.
But she says she still doesn't know who, or she said Rosemary doesn't know who her killer is. And then Jane asked for the CDs because she had mentioned, and this kind of dates the show. She
Yes.
mentioned that she had recordings of all of their sessions on CD. Everything's digital now, but yeah, back then Christina was firing up her CD burner.
Oh, it's so wild.
I like the exchange between them here, though. She says, Jane asks, can you make sure that Rosemary shows up at the reading of the will? And she says, she's a departed soul, not a wedding singer. You can't book her in advance. I don't like Christina, but that was a good clapback.
Yeah, it was.
All right, so Jane heads back to the house, and he tells. Okay, so this is one of those episodes where Jane does like a gather everybody in one room kind of thing, and we're gonna suss
Yep.
out the killer. But I think at this point, sometimes he does this to figure out who it is. But in this one, he knows who it is, and he's just using everybody else in the room to get that person to confess, right? So that's what this one is. He knows who it is already.
Yes. This one hurts a little bit. Like, how he manipulates the killer.
Yeah. And because, like, so he goes to the kids and he sets things up. He tells them that he thinks it's Kristina Frye and that
Mhm.
she's responsible for Rosemary's death. And he wants the kids to make sure that Christina conducts a seance at the reading of the will so that he can expose her as a fraud. And I think as the viewer, they're trying to trick us into thinking that he suspects Christina because they've shown him be very antagonistic to her. So we're supposed to think that he is trying to go after Christina. Like that's
Right.
supposed to create the twist that he doesn't actually know that it's
Right.
Clara. But back at the office, this this scene was pretty amusing because Rigsby and Van Pelt are like discussing, oh, this is so immoral. It's wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. And Rigsby thinks they're talking about the microwave that he's using to make his popcorn.
Yep.
Oh my, like I was just like, oh my God, how is this man an agent with the CBI? And
So good.
even Jane, he's like sitting there or drinking
Yeah.
tea and he's like looking at them very amused.
Yeah.
But basically Van like we don't know the plan, but she's upset that they're going to be using a seance to catch the killer because she believes in this whole talking to the dead thing and that it's a mockery, and she gets very offended like on a personal level, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
she does.
she kind of crosses a line, and she's
Mhm.
brutal. she's she's near tears. She's that upset over this idea of this setup that Jane has put together. And
Yep.
she said, "Oh, yeah," but she says, "What if tonight your family is looking down on you and they're trying to talk to you, but you can't hear them because you don't believe?" And ouch.
Yes.
That was pretty
Um,
gutting.
but to Jane's credit, he's like, that would be sad. Like he gives that space. Like it gives her room to, like, with her beliefs, that's valid. And
Yeah,
he gives
yeah,
her that space.
yeah. So is this the first time they've mentioned Jane's belief that there's no afterlife?
Could be, could be. I
We're not very good at remembering what we've already talked
no,
about.
right. Take take notes about what we talk about.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I felt like this was the first mention of his belief that there's no afterlife. They do carry this throughout the series,
They
so
do. They do. Van Pelt does apologize, and
yeah,
they end this on good terms. So I think that's important for their
yeah, yeah.
their future happiness.
So at the reading of the will, the lawyer doesn't seem very happy, and I don't blame
No.
him because what a strange thing to do. It. I mean, you're gonna go like do like your typical will reading, and there's candles and people holding hands and ghosts whispering from the.
Yes.
He
Ugh.
must be like, "What the heck is going on here?" I guess the kids have done what Jane asked, and they've invited Christina, and they want her to do a she calls it a contact ritual. She has a candle in the middle, and calls out to Rosemary. But at this point, I think Christina is in on it, right? She's
She
in
would
on it too.
she would have to be because
Yeah,
they have Rosemary's voice speaking.
yeah, and she would have known because she gave them the CDs, and so they must have told her what they were going to use them for, right? But they don't show that to
No,
us.
not right away, huh?
So like this performance is for the audience. It's for the
Yes.
twist. So yeah, we hear Rosemary's voice, and who is Christina's talking to her, right? She's leading Rosemary, pretending to talk to Rosemary. And
Mhm.
she calls out, she says, "Clara, why?" And I was trying to wonder, like, why would Rosemary say that in one of her sessions? I guess she must have been just maybe had a fight with her daughter or something and was contemplating thinking that during an
Yeah.
argument? I don't
Or
know.
I mean, they had to play specific sound bites, so they could have just cobbled it together.
Yeah, yeah. But so Clara gets disturbed by this and she runs upstairs and Jane follows and he's got his phone behind his back. I don't know what he's doing, but he's basically contacting Cho and Rigsby who are in a van outside and they're the
Yeah.
ones playing all these they're like the sound mixers or whatever for his
Yeah.
fake sounds. And I don't know, like, do you think that's part of the reason why Van Pelt was so bothered? It's because,
She knew the plan.
yeah, she knew the plan, so and maybe that Christina was willing to go along with it, and that this is the lady who like has been preaching
Mhm.
these beliefs, and yet she's willing to like put together this farce and participate, and yeah, so I don't know. Now that I think about it, maybe that's what bothers her too, is they got Christina to go along with their ruse. But so finally, Clara does confess and they take her back to the CBI. I don't know why they got to take her back to the CBI to do this. And they had a van, so I'm guessing they drove this time without and it's not the chopper. So, or maybe some of them took the chopper and some of them got to take the van. Or maybe they rented the van. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
See, that's why I think maybe like that's why the location like is not mentioned so people can't
Yeah.
go and like be like, "Hey, this is
Yeah,
too far away. It's
probably.
what is up with this?" But Clara explains like why she did it. I don't know why she's not calling for a lawyer. They clearly had a lawyer already at that house. She should although to
Yeah.
be fair, he wasn't a state lawyer, so
Yes,
but
different.
I feel like somebody who comes from money is just practiced at like being like, "Lawyer, I'm not gonna confess and lay out how I killed my own mother for you right here." But it's a TV show, so
Yeah, there is that.
killers are very stupid all the time, especially after Jean has figured it out.
Yes, and this one is so emotional because she did it in the heat of the moment.
Yeah,
Like, she just got angry. So I
yeah,
think she probably regrets it,
Yeah.
and knowing that her brother is a suspect and she doesn't want him to have to go to jail or take the
Yeah.
blame.
And they do, yeah, they do explain, like, that everything has been building up for this woman, that her mom has been, over the years, just throwing away the family's money at all these grifters and con artists and things, and yet when it comes to her own son, she's gonna cut him off and leave him hanging out to dry. So, I mean, I get being angry, and then
Yeah.
she explains that the thing that tipped her over was she was watching her mom, and she called her, but she ignored her call, so she
Mhm.
was really hurt by that. There was a really interesting part where she is trying to justify what she did. I mean, she knows what she did was wrong, and she knows she's gonna be arrested and stuff like that, but she cries out, "Parents are supposed to protect their kids," and this kind of affects Jane because, yeah,
Yeah.
just like with the red-handed one we just watched, right?
Yeah.
It's about this whole parents protecting kids thing, and yeah. Plus, it's been fresh with Christina bringing it up too, so. But it's not over. This is the final scene, the one that gets me so upset, and it's highly debated. This gets discussed all the time on, like, the subreddit and things like that. But basically, Christina approaches Jane while he's on his couch, and he's trying to ignore her. She's like, "I just came to get my CDs." But then she asks to talk to him in private, and he's like, "You can talk to me right here." But she insists that it's, like, private. So
Yeah.
they go to an interrogation room, and Christina says that she's made contact with his wife. And here I was just like already up in arms. I was like, "Oh no, this woman is not going there." And even him, he's just like, "No, wait, hold on," because she had started off the conversation by saying, like, "I want you to listen to me without interrupting,"
Mhm.
because she knew he was gonna, like, protest and, like, but yeah, she tells him, "Wait, just listen." And she says that she knows that there's a question that's been tormenting him ever since that night that his family was killed. And she says, "Your wife wants me to tell you that your daughter never woke up. She didn't know what happened. She wasn't scared, not even for a second." Oh,
Ouch.
yeah. And so he's visibly upset, and he looks away, and he doesn't look at her again. Like, he's pissed
Mhm.
because I do like this scene though, because it's so emotional for him. We rarely see him show this much emotion, I
Right.
think. And she tells him goodbye, and she leaves, and he's just sitting at that table, and he starts crying. They have the camera on his face, and they just show his face going from, like, anger and up and being upset, and he just breaks down. He starts crying, and I think I really like what this scene does for Jane's character, and, like, how it lays out things, because it's like they've established that he's trying to reverse his karma. They've established that he was a charlatan, and he used to prey on people, and he was exactly how Christina was, and yet the tables have turned on him in this scene, and now he gets a taste of what he must have been doing to other people,
Hmm.
preying on their most their darkest, most emotional thoughts and
Mhm.
things like that. So, yeah. And so you're kind of torn. Like, I wouldn't say, like, equally torn for me, but on the one hand, you're like, because he had talked about guilt and self-loathing, right? How he is filled with
Right.
guilt and self-loathing. So this is the
Right.
self-loathing thing.
And I think he so desperately wants to believe
Yeah. Yeah.
what she's saying, but he doesn't believe her that she really knows.
Yeah, because he does confirm when she says there's a question that's been tormenting you, and he does confirm that there is one.
Mhm.
So, but I think for me, my own belief is that she was reading him, and I go back and forth on this all the time on her intent.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
because was she being malicious, or was she trying to help him? Because
Right.
it's such a gray area, because she does seem to sincerely care about people, and yet she's also this con woman who's, like, brutal and after money. So, but I feel like some days I feel like she can be both. She can care for him and have pity for him and want to help him by saying this thing, and yet she also probably knows that part of him can't decide either whether she's saying it, or I don't know. It's very complicated, but it's
Yeah,
very interestingly complicated. So
it is.
yeah, it's a great scene. As much as I want to punch her.
But that's the thing too, is that we carry all the anger for Christina. But is
Yeah,
it because of this scene specifically, or is it the whole buildup? Does like Van Pelt clearly likes her.
yeah, yeah.
She's a likable person in theory.
Yeah, yeah, because she has a very gentle way of speaking, like, and that's probably
Yeah.
like what she monetizes too, right? She has a way about her that makes her seem very sincere and caring.
Mhm.
So yeah. Despite all the things that have been building up, Van Pelt sees and hears him crying, and
Yeah.
she doesn't. This is where Van Pelt redeems herself in the episode. She doesn't go in and dig it in. She just quietly closes the door
Closes
and
the
lets
door.
him be by himself. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a nice way to close it out. I felt like it was a healing moment for me because I just felt like they were so much at odds, and then it
Yeah.
culminated in that scene in the break room where she like says like that brutal thing. Very strong ending to the episode.
Yeah.
All right, cold reading, how to read. Actually, we talked about this
We
at what
did.
point Jane cracks the case. It's because of the she died in the gutter thing.
Yeah, and he very clearly says this in the episode too, that
Yeah,
she
yeah,
she asks him straight up, "How when did you know it was me?"
yeah,
He's and says it did take him a little while to put it together, but he's watching her the whole way through, you could
yeah,
see.
yeah. And I guess that was like I don't know. He says that he didn't put it together until later. But so why do you think he was so interested in her? Like he picked up that detail, or do you think he just stored it in his head and thought about it later?
Yeah, I do wonder that. I think he did build a rapport with her pretty early, and I
Yeah.
wonder if that's because, like, she lost her mom.
Hmm.
Like, is he, because she's a lost child at this point, if he's
And she's not sure where her brother is.
right, right. So if he just wants to be a friend at this point,
Yeah,
or
yeah. Or is he onto her at some
right.
in some capacity? All right, hot reading. Why don't you go through the deleted scenes from this
Yeah,
one? Were any of these available to see, or are these just from the script?
that I don't this one's just from the script, I believe.
Uh,
I didn't double check the CD, I should start doing that.
yeah, I should
But
start doing too. I got my DVD player in. So I have my CDs, so I got to go back and look at those.
yeah. So I mentioned earlier at the beginning that supposedly the local cop was flirting with Lisbon. So at the end of the episode here, they had a deleted scene where he's at the CBI. Like that's another thing that doesn't support that they were 2 hours away. Because yeah, like the local cop like arrests Clara, and then this cop Francis kind of pulls Lisbon aside, but they're still in the bullpen. But he pulls her aside and he says, "Was meaning to ask, do you ever date other cops? I know a lot of females on the job have rules about that stuff." And Lisbon says, "Yes, I do have rules." And he says, "Can I see a copy of your rules? Maybe there's a loophole or something."
Oh, so he was going at her kind of hard.
Yeah. And she says, "No loopholes, but it was nice to meet you, Detective Francis." And she shakes his hand and just walks away. But Jane watches it all. And
Uh,
and then that transitions to him smiling and sitting down on the couch.
Also, a lot of these scenes that you talk about from the script are very just been built up.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they deliberately point out that Jane is observing all of her
uh,
interactions with this guy.
Interesting. I mean, I do think that the first time I watched the show, I felt like the romantic interest between them was really subtle. I mean, I
Yes.
knew it was coming because it was clear they were the two leads, but I felt like it was almost like it was very, very, very little of it. So I guess maybe they wanted to stretch it out. I don't know. I don't feel like Lisbon and Jane felt really like gelled together until at least like mid season 2, and then pretty strongly
Yeah.
in season 3 and on. But yeah, this
Yeah.
first season was pretty subtle. Got to strain to look for things. And it requires context too. So okay, so some people like to pay attention to what Jane reads throughout the series, and I had actually had some experience with this because like last summer, somebody posted a screenshot of Jane, the book that Jane is reading, and they wanted to know what book that was. And so I went down this Google rabbit hole. I had to pause the show so many times because I had to like try to get it on. It's so quick. He like snaps the
Right.
book shut and he puts it down, but it has a kind of distinctive cover. So I had to keep pausing it until I could read like some letters on the spine, and eventually, I found it on Amazon. It's called The Treason of Intellectuals by Julian Benda. It took a lot.
Bravo.
Took a lot of work though. All right, rewatch checklist. Just been moments. So we just talked about the one that was,
The flirting observations.
yeah. So that wasn't in there, but then you also mentioned that they stand very close together. This is at the when they're
The
pulling the car out of the water.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
reservoir. They are. I mean, Christina is on the scene, so they're kind of watching her, but they're standing shoulder to shoulder, discussing intently,
Uh,
which makes it all the more amusing that Van Pelt chooses to budge in on their conversation.
so I think, like location wise, I'm not sure I recognized any of them. Maybe the town when they were looking at where Rosemary got run over, that might have been like I had previously mentioned. I think it was during Redwood. The town I said that was like the Warner Brothers studio lot. I think that's probably also the same area because it kind of has that same like vibe of the generic
Mhm.
town. So I think
Mhm.
that might have been where it was. But nothing else that we've mentioned so far. Favorite lines. I liked, like I mentioned, the Christina one where she's like, she's not a wedding singer. That was pretty good. But I also liked the one when Christina reads Jane and he talks about how he's full of guilt and self-loathing. I like that one. And so I like that one because at the time you're like watching this banter between them, but also your brain is like, oh my God, poor Jane.
Yeah. I chose the microwave conversation. Van Pelt, she's talking about seances, but she just says, "I don't like this. They're immoral." And they're staring at the microwave. So Richie's like, "Yeah, I've heard they cook your brain and make you infertile."
Her reaction when she's like, what are you talking about?
Microwaves, what are you talking about? We're looking at the microwave.
Uh, oh, poor Rigsby, so innocent. And what's funny is he doesn't like join in on the conversation once she reveals that this is what she's actually talking about. He's
Right.
just like, he just scares her. He just goes, boo.
Yeah.
He's such a child sometimes.
It's not one of his best moments.
All right. And that's it for the episode breakdown. We'll be right back with our Memory Palace quiz. Okay, we're back with our new Mary Palace quiz for you this week. You can check out our social media this weekend for a bonus question. The way this works is I'm going to ask Karin 5 questions of increasing difficulty, although I have to admit, I have been pretty bad about my accuracy with increasing difficulty. I don't put these in very good order sometimes, so I apologize for that. It's supposed to be increasing difficulty. But yeah, so I'm going to ask 5 questions about the episode we just discussed, and you'll have 5 seconds to come up with the answer. Question 1. What color is the car that kills Rosemary?
It's this really boring color. It's like beige or gray or something like that.
Uh-oh.
Am I totally wrong?
It's silver.
Silver? That's gray.
Oh, that was my first question too.
I am doomed. Doomed.
All right, question 2. What is Founder's Lake, the place that they found the car that killed Rosemary?
It's a reservoir.
Yeah, good job. All right, question 3. What does Jeremy call Rosemary? Like name wise.
don't know.
He calls her Rosie.
Rosie. I should have just guessed it.
Question 4. Jane says there are 2 things beyond his understanding: golf and musical theater, of which decades?
30s and 40s.
Oh, good job. All right. Hardest question, I think. Question 5. What is the name of Kristina Frye's psychic business?
Can I cheat?
Depends. What are you talking about?
Can I check my notes?
No. This is a memory palace quiz, not a check my notes quiz, Karin.
Healing Springs.
It's the Temple of Harmony.
Oh,
And the source for this is
no.
that's the sign that's outside
It
her
is.
house.
I know.
With like
I
the water
know.
lilies and the pond and everything.
I pictured the sign.
All right. Any last thoughts? Like I said, this episode is really annoying, but there are some really good character building scenes in this episode. So
There are. And I find that true with so many episodes. Whether you like the case or not, there's going to be some gem in there about
yeah.
the characters and the team. I was going to say that Kristina Frye is polarizing, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure that she is. Do you know anyone who actually likes her as much as Van Pelt?
No, I think everyone hates her.
I feel like it's either hate or indifference. I
Yeah.
don't feel like anyone
Yeah.
is like, "Oh yeah, Christina, I love her."
Yeah, I don't know what it is about her. Cause I mean, you would think that like because it's her job to make people feel at ease and like her, that more people would like her. But it just from the discussions I've seen whenever she comes up, none of the fans seem to like her. I,
Right.
but to be fair, I think it comes down to the scene where she makes Jane cry.
Yeah.
Because it hurts to see him hurting that much, despite like
Yeah.
knowing about his past and things like that. So
Yeah. I will say I do enjoy all the episodes where Jane comes against a
another
psychic.
psychic, yeah,
They're so fun and revealing for his character and how he views
yeah,
his past and what he knows they're capable of. And I find it really interesting that in this episode or ever, Christina never cracks.
yeah.
She's
She's
always
always
the
on.
psychic.
Yeah, yeah. She's very skilled and dedicated. If you're enjoying Rom-Com Detectives, be sure to leave us a review or rating on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. For our Spotify listeners, leave us a comment for our question of the week and tell us whether you think that what Christina told Jane was real or not, because this is a heavily debated topic. Did she make it up or was that real? Is she a psychic or not? If you'd like to join additional conversations about The Mentalist, you can visit the Mentalist subreddit at reddit.com/r/The Mentalist, and you can join the Mentalist Bullpen Discord server linked in the sidebar. And I will say that the Discord server has been very active lately.
Oh
So
my
if you're
goodness, yes it has.
so if you're looking for a place to like discuss it with other mentalists, hardcore fans, that is the place to be right now. Literally hundreds of messages a day now, I think. To contact me and Karin, email us at host@romcomdetectives.com. You can follow us on Instagram or threads at romcomdetectives, or leave us a voicemail or text message at 1-650-733-XOXO or 9696. This episode of Rom-Com Detectives was recorded on May 1st, 2025. Rom-Com Detectives Mentalist Unit is co-hosted by Krista Watanabe and Karin Lubbers and is produced by Pico's House. And I made it without calling her a B word. Go me! Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye.
Bye.